Hey, Neil, thank you for coming in. I mean, it's just amazing what you're doing. It's simply outstanding. You know, there's so much excitement around the metaverse or things around the metaverse. I mean, it really, I mean, I did an interview recently with Patty Mays of the MIT Media Lab Fluid Interface Group, and they've been working on this for like 3 decades. So it's not a new concept, right?
Right. No, Stephen, no, thank you for the invitation. That is great to talk to you. And you're right. Lots of us in the industry have been working on standards for the metaverse. We just never knew it at the time.
Yeah, and Neil, your background is just remarkable, and we're going to mine some of that background because you've been at the forefront of all of the standards work leading up to where we are today. And so I'm looking forward to getting into more detail about that. But before we get into meat of what we're doing right now, maybe you can describe 2 or 3 inflection points in your life that made this outstanding career that you have.
Sure. Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I guess looking back, it is strange how small things that happen in your life to completely affect the flow of everything that happens downstream. I guess if I were to look back why I've ended up here, but all the way back to college was where I found my love for 3D graphics, and that's been a constant theme through much of what we do, both at NVIDIA, which is my day job, and at Khronos, and now the Metaverse Standards Forum. I've always wanted to be an artist, but never had the hand-eye coordination. So I did photography, and I still do photography. But the visual aspect of 3D graphics has always been a fascination to me. So that was something that as soon as I found it, I just wanted to continue doing that. So that was definitely something that affected the rest of my career. And kind of related and downstream, I think the other really important thing that happened was when OpenGL became an open standard. And I was just working in a company and observing that happening at that point. But the power of open standards to really affect in a good way, in a positive way, how an industry organizes and builds good business for everyone involved was really enlightening. And it was something that was making the world a better place. And so again, I've had a strong, compelling desire to kind of get involved with the standards community. And perhaps the other kind of inflection point was the very back in the early days of trying to bring 3D on the web 3D consortium that was working on the Vermal standard. They were looking for a president because they just had set up this consortium, and I'd never done anything like that before. And for reasons that remain a mystery to me even today, I put my name in the hat to be elected as the president of that consortium. And I got elected, and that was really where I learned the how consortia work and how standards work from the inside out. And a big shout out to the Web 3D community that were very patient with me as I kind of learned how to do that. And that consortium still goes today, and we keep in close touch.
So, I mean, it's really interesting. I can hear this drive and this passion that started early in the creativity elements, but you had this interest in art, and yet you're enabling art, right? In essence, right. Because it's so much of the computing graphics is around art and so on, and driving, and like DALL-E 2, I think is quite amazing, right? So
yeah, that's right. Content is king, and it's the payoff for everyone working in standards is when you actually see the standards being used. A standard that isn't adopted and used throughout the industry, it isn't really adding value. But when it is used, when developers use programming interfaces, or when, as you say, artists use the final tools for creativity, that is an amazing thing to see, and that is the payoff for all the hard work that goes on behind the scenes. So.
Yeah, and you being part of this tremendous growth of GPUs. I mean, I've been in the industry for so long. I remember really GPUs are like an outlier. But now,
Yes.
I mean, NVIDIA is like what, 3 times larger market cap than Intel or something like that. It's just amazing, right? So
Yes. Yeah, that's right. And you know, when I first started doing graphics, you know, GPUs weren't a thing. You know, a single chip that could do 3D graphics wasn't a thing. We had my first, I used to be an engineer before I got into kind of more business development. And the first board I designed was a large board full of bit slice processors, you know, to do graphics. And it's been amazing to see just how, you know, GPU architecture has taken advantage of, you know, data parallelism, and then programmability. And now today's GPUs, of course, are, you know, are so flexible, but still taking advantage of parallelism. It's a wonderful way to, you know, deliver compute power to where it's needed. And it's very interesting the way that GPUs have evolved. You know, GPUs are used in lots of different market areas now, but it was the gaming industry that gave it the initial impetus, and still is one of the major markets for GPUs. It's kind of cool that, you know, gaming builds the volume that GPUs need so they can be applied in many other market areas too. And of course, those market areas like machine learning and artificial intelligence, like you say, you know, that's beginning to come such a major market too for GPU processing. It's interesting that gaming was the start.
yeah, you must have been overjoyed when Jeffrey Hinton did that ImageNet, and and people couldn't believe the leap, right? And then that really instantiated this really interest in machine learning and really driven by GPUs, and then that's just an explosion worldwide in its adoption. And you being part of that entire journey, your career must have touched Alain Chenet as well. I mean, he's the president, used to be the president of SIGGRAPH, and I'm sure you've published at SIGGRAPH, or you've been involved with SIGGRAPH, which is the special interest group in graphics, which is like the world leader, but it's under the ACM, the Association for Computing Machinery.
Yes, that's right. So the ACM is, you know, the umbrella organization which does so much amazing work around the world. For the graphics community, you know, SIGGRAPH is the spiritual home of everything to do with 3D, and it has been for many years. I've been attending SIGGRAPH, I think, you know, close to 30 years now, and all of the breaking research and all of the community building that makes, you know, the 3D community such a, you know, special place to be. It's quite a small community. It's getting larger, but it's surprising how small the community is. And, you know, SIGGRAPH is the place where everyone goes to, you know, to catch up every year and to get the latest, you know, 3D technologies, and increasingly, you know, augmented and virtual reality, you know, the XR technologies too, you know, are beginning to be well represented at SIGGRAPH. Yeah, I wouldn't miss SIGGRAPH for anything. We've had to the last year or two, of course, with COVID, but other than that, you wouldn't keep me away for anything. So
Yeah, and it's been held in Vancouver too, right? Last few years. So.
Yeah. Everyone's really looking forward to getting back together again in person. So
How about IEEE? Do you interface with them that much at all, or?
I am a member. Yeah, so you know, I keep with IEEE, I kind of use it to keep in touch with, you know, lots of the latest technologies, but not so much, not so much attending events, but, you know, beginning to work quite closely with IEEE for interaction both with Khronos and increasingly the Metaverse Forum too. IEEE have been quite active in the Metaverse domain, and that, you know, they have various working groups, you know, under IEEE that are very relevant to what the Metaverse is going to be.
Okay, so let's now move this journey. So you talked about you know, being inspired by art, and you felt graphics was a way to do it. You went to Birmingham and you had this double major, I guess, which is really difficult with honors, right? So.
Right. It was actually, that was another inflection point. That actually, because I was going around, you know, in the UK, you do the rounds around the universities and you choose one. I was about to do electrical engineering. That was the thing. And then I was walking out of the lobby at Birmingham University, and the receptionist said, "Oh, before you go, have you heard of this new course we're doing, which is a joint computer science and electronics?" And oh my God, that's what I want to do. I often think if that receptionist hadn't offered that leaflet at that precise moment, I was literally walking out the door, and my life would have been completely different. And it was one of the first courses that combined electronics and computer science. One of the very first, to my knowledge, in the world, actually. So we were very fortunate to be, microprocessors were just beginning to happen. And so we were very fortunate to be on that kind of leading edge.
Yeah, and then as you mentioned in your inflection point, you talk about OpenGL and then WebGL, and you were able to lead in these areas. And so you got used to this idea of standards and then working together in communities to bring stakeholders together, which is what you're doing now with this Metaverse Standards Forum. But before we get into that, I just want to ask a few more questions about, you're the Vice President of Developer Ecosystems at NVIDIA. So what does that work entail? And NVIDIA has become like a magic company out there, right? It's so popular today.
Well, NVIDIA does good work, and it's a unique company. The culture really encourages everyone to be a team player and to do the best, both for the company and the industry. So I really enjoy working there. It's a very interesting company, and being a graphics person, it's one of the companies that's of course doing most for progressing the field of graphics. So it's exciting to be there amongst other people that share the same passion. But yeah, lots of people ask me, what does VP developers ecosystems actually mean? That's a good question. Bottom line, it's encouraging and enabling developers to use GPUs, but maybe at kind of the bigger picture. There's developer relations and technical support, which very hands-on support for particular developers. But the developer ecosystems role is trying to take a wider view, saying what does the ecosystem need in general, not necessarily for a particular developer. And of course, that very much is synergistic with my role at Khronos and the Metaverse Forum, because one of the things that developers need is open standards and open standard APIs and asset formats to enable them to do their work and develop applications that are portable across multiple platforms in a productive way. So NVIDIA is very supportive in that they let me spend a good chunk of my time helping the standards ecosystem evolve. So I'm very grateful for that.
You're so embedded in the graphics area. So, you're the president of Khronos, but a lot of people in the audience don't know about the work of Khronos. So can you give us a little bit of history and its purpose and its objectives?
Yeah, no, it's a question we often get. What's a Khronos? So Khronos is a non-profit open standards consortium. So what we call a standards developing organization, and there are many standards developing organizations throughout the industry, of course. Each SDO, standards developing organization, each SDO has a particular focus. And over time, the different SDOs in the industry, find their patch and their turf where they can add value to the industry. And Khronos's expertise and value to the industry is in the field of acceleration APIs. We like to say connecting software to silicon. So if a library or an application needs to reach down into hardware acceleration, that's where Khronos likes to provide open standards, so that hardware access is portable across different vendors. And our starting point was 3D graphics. As I mentioned, now we have standards for XR hardware, and more generally we have APIs for just parallel computation, used for things like machine vision and increasingly inferencing and machine learning too. So we've been going around 20 years. We've just passed our 20th birthday, Khronos was originally formed by Intel, actually, to create the OpenML standard, which was going to be OpenGL for graphics and OpenML for video. But it was not the right standard at the right time. Despite the best efforts of everyone, it didn't really take off. But there was the opportunity to bring graphics to mobile and embedded devices. And the OpenGL ARB, the Architecture Review Board, was very focused on workstations. And so the ARB enabled Khronos to start up a new working group to do OpenGL ES, OpenGL embedded systems. And OpenGL ES at Khronos became literally the most widely adopted 3D API in the history of the known universe, because it was on every desktop system and every mobile phone. It was literally everywhere. Then when Silicon Graphics withdrew from the industry, a new home was needed for OpenGL. And so the mothership, OpenGL itself, then came to Khronos as well. And that gave us the platform to build WebGL, bringing GL capability into the web. And then we expanded out into these other closely related API areas.
I'm just thinking of the advent of these smartphones, and that really would accelerate all of this too, and then adoption, and there's this sort of confluence of machine learning and what's happened there, and then the mobile universe, and then of course this whole attention to 3D, and it's just accelerating. So now let's move and shift that conversation to the Metaverse Standards Forum. How did that come about? You're the chairman of this forum, and I remember when your announcement came out, I saw a few companies like Microsoft and a few others that were supporting this thing, and I just looked at it the other day, and it's like over 1,000, I think, companies or something that are in the queue. So can you describe the genesis of this thing?
Yeah, it's getting close. I mean, we made the launch with 35 companies, which did include some leading companies, as you say, Microsoft, Meta, and NVIDIA and Qualcomm from the hardware side, Autodesk and Adobe from the tooling side, Sony from the platform side. So we had a good launch quorum of founding members. But you're right, and the forum is only 2.5 weeks old since we did the launch. But I think the latest count this morning was 850 companies have joined, which I think speaks to the level of interest in the metaverse. Although not many people know what the metaverse is. In fact, we don't know what the metaverse is going to be either. But it's okay; we don't need to. We can talk about that. But there's a lot of interest in the metaverse in general, and I think there's been the level of interest also shows that there's been a thirst, a desire in the industry for companies to come together to discuss and cooperate how they can best work in the field of the metaverse. And we're excited and thrilled that there's been so much industry interest. So now we're working hard to make sure that even with so many diverse companies in the forum joining so quickly, we can organize efficiently to have productive cooperative discussions and actions being produced, work products being produced by the forum.
Neil, you're unique in that you've been involved with graphics for decades. So, and this term metaverse has gone really popular. As I mentioned earlier, I was talking to Patty Mays of the Fluid Interfaces group at MIT Media Labs, and they were saying, wow, we've been working on this thing for over 3 decades. So I'd like to get, because you've been involved really at the foundation of so many of these standards and standards work, I'd like to hear your definition of the metaverse.
Well, it is a good question. I think the one thing I do know, it's not going to be like Ready Player One. But if anyone who knows that story, the story is the metaverse suddenly bursts upon the world, created by one company. In fact, one programmer, right? In that story, it's not going to happen that way. So many pieces of technology need to come together. It's going to be a very Darwinian process of experimentation, successes and failures, as we gradually build the metaverse, whatever it ends up being. But I think most people would agree that it's going to be some mix of the connectivity of today's web with the immersiveness of spatial computing in all its richness, 3D graphics, augmented virtual reality, ray tracing, machine learning, all of that stuff. It's going to be some combination of bringing those two domains together. But it's going to take a lot of technologies coming together in novel ways that we haven't done before. And the level of interest in the industry, I think everyone recognizes this is a real opportunity. It's driving the need and the commercial desire to make these technologies work together. So, and I think that's why there's been so much interest in the Metaverse Standards Forum. I think a lot of companies do honestly believe that if the metaverse is to reach its full potential, we're going to need the right standards at the right time, not just from a pure engineering point of view of making things work, but making sure that the metaverse is open and equitable for all. A good open standard can do a lot to make that so. And so we have found a lot of interest in interoperability standards that in many cases, and Khronos included, and W3C and OTC and all these other standards organizations, we've been working on these things for years. But now they have become relevant to more people because of the context of and interest in the larger concept of the metaverse. It's really raising the level of participation and interest in open standards, which as an open standards kind of person is really cool to see. And that's why we needed the forum, because no one standards organization can possibly create all of these different standards. It's going to take a constellation of standards being created by dozens of standards organizations. And although the standards organizations many times have one-on-one liaisons, to our knowledge, there has never been this attempt to provide this kind of coordination overlay over all of the different standards organizations. And the metaverse has provided both the need and the opportunity to provide a forum where all of the standards orgs can come together, and the industry too, because we need the industry to tell us what they need. The worst thing is a standard that is designed in an ivory tower, disconnected from industry reality. So we need industry and the standards community around one table, and that's at the basics. It's a simple idea, but the basic simple idea behind the forum.
Well, as you indicated, you launched with 30 plus companies 2.5 weeks ago. Now you get over 800 who are involved. And in fact, I got an email because I registered as well, and it said there's over 1,000 in the queue or something like that. So
more coming. Yeah. No, it's been great, and it's a little bit scary actually. We've been handed this responsibility now by the industry. So we're the Metaverse Forum, and this is where the Khronos and Metaverse Forum kind of intertwine. That the forum is being bootstrapped by Khronos. So the Khronos board has kindly offered to pay for getting the forum up and running. In terms of the admin support and the online hosting of resources, and the Khronos team have been working super hard over the last 2.5 weeks to get everyone onboarded. We didn't expect this much interest, to be honest, but it's been great to see, and everyone's been doing a fantastic job. But once Khronos is participating in the forum, Khronos doesn't get any special rights. We're just one of the many standards organizations that we have. It's within our non-profit mission to encourage the use of these kinds of technologies throughout the industry. So we're happy and thrilled to be able to be in the right place at the right time to be able to play a role in helping this thing get off the ground.
So I'm going to sort of give, looking at your website and sort of my view, but it says something like this, and I hope the audience doesn't quote me, but the forum will focus on pragmatic, action-based projects. So that's really interesting, especially because I'm a person from the industry, but I also sit across standards work as well. And so it's not just a talk shop. You're going to do stuff, and such as implementing prototyping, hackathons, plugfests, and open source tooling to accelerate the testing and adoption of standards, while also developing consistent terminology and deployment guidelines. That's really attractive.
Yeah. Yes. No. Absolutely. And you put your finger on the key thing, because many times discussions around the metaverse do devolve into long-term philosophical discussions about what things might be in 20 years' time. And we don't need to do that again. We have Twitter for that. We want the Metaverse Standards Forum to be focused on standards and exactly as you say, to be action-based, to actually move the needle. So although we don't know what the metaverse is going to be in 20 years' time, and we have this Darwinian soup going on right now with people trying different things and different market opportunities being explored. One thing is clear is that if we're careful, we can identify interoperability problems that are real problems right now today, and are definitely going to be needed down the line, regardless of where the final metaverse ends up being. So that's what we want to do, is to be very thoughtful about finding the problems that we can move the needle on today and make a difference. Doing hackathon testing, plugfest type testing, and guidelines. One of the first projects that's come up, and it's like super obvious once you think about it, but 10 minutes into the first meeting, it kind of someone said, well, where's the list of all the standards then that are relevant to the metaverse? And we all go, oh, we don't have one. So that's probably going to be the first project that we kick off, is getting the standards community and the wider industry to crowdsource a useful resource, a signposting to all of the various resources. That's going to be useful for the standards organizations, let alone anyone in the industry trying to use the standards. Where are the gaps between the different standards organizations? What are we all working on that are potentially related? There hasn't been a central resource that's been built by the community itself, and just the act of doing that is going to be a voyage of discovery, and I think it will be really valuable. But yes, then going down the line, having plugfest type projects, actually not just talking about interoperability in theory, but trying it out, particularly if it goes across boundaries between standards organizations. Now, this organization is normatively referencing this and using it. If you do it that way, does it work? What are the bugs? What are the gaps? It gives me goosebumps thinking of all the good data we're going to get for the standards organizations involved, but by doing that kind of hands-on project.
But I can, the credibility too, though, is really your background, because you've done so much work in this area. So the fact that you're sharing this will attract a lot of people, and they drill into your background. They go, wow, I mean, this gentleman really knows what this is all about, because you worked in every facet of this. I just want to add another sort of contextual layer, and that is, are you going to look at governance in any way, or this sort of ethical framework work? There's a lot of it in the AI space, and some of that will be important in this space as well. And some of these questions have come up, or are you going to leave that to be a sort of a separate discussion with other groups?
That's a very good question. And you mentioned the credibility. It's not me. It's Khronos and the other standards organizations to be doing work. I'm just fortunate to be a part of it. But the high order answer to your question is, what are we going to focus on? Are we going to focus on things like governance and ethics and Web3 type stuff, which is the blockchain crypto side of things? The answer is going to be driven by the members. It goes back to what we were saying earlier. Now, Khronos is happy to bootstrap logistically the forum, but we are not dictating, and not should any one member dictate where the focus areas end up being. Now, we want to be Darwinian too. It's where the members demonstrate a passion and an interest. That's where the forum should focus, because that people care about the things that make a difference, right? So it's a good dynamic, good healthy dynamic. As long as we stay in a broad scope, that's the way to let things happen. So that is the way we're self-organizing right now. Of course, it's early days, literally only a week or two in, but with all these members, we are letting people online collate just the list of topics that they would be interested in, the domains and particular pain points from interoperability that they are interested in. And already, just a few days in, we are seeing clumping. There are definite domains emerging, a lot around 3D, also a lot around, actually a lot around ethics and kind of governance. And other domains, geospatial, it's a long list. And in a few weeks, we're going to have the first list of domains, and we'll make that public. We want to be as open, of course, as we can. And then we'll begin to organize working groups, to address those domains in smaller groups that really care about that topic. So it's going to be interesting to see how big those domain working groups are and whether we have to subdivide it further. It's going to be very incremental. How we build this organization around the interests of the members.
You've been involved with some really seminal and pioneering standards work, and also getting the stakeholders together. And as you mentioned, it's really a crowd effort, right? Getting people involved and participating, volunteering, and so on as well. Do you have some sense of the time frame, or is it just too early?
Good question. So if the question is, when do you think the metaverse will appear? I don't think we'll never have that one seminal moment where we say, okay, the metaverse has been announced today. It's going to be this gradual process, and then suddenly we'll wake up and say, actually, what we have today is pretty much what we called the metaverse back in 2022. It's going to be incremental, and that means that there's going to be, it's the journey, is the opportunity, not the final destination. There's going to be commercial opportunity every step of the way, as we all work together to this longer term goal. That there's going to be opportunities for everyone involved, and just inside the forum, we want to leverage that too. We want to have, as I mentioned, the projects that can make a difference today. We want to have some early successes, make a difference in a real practical way early. We hope that will build the credibility of the forum and build the momentum to do more work down the line. I don't know how long the forum is going to last. We'll see. But the journey to the metaverse is multiple decades. But we don't have to wait. There's going to be good stuff along the way as we go.
I work a lot with the UN, so there's always this question of different parts of the world, and maybe they don't have access to the same resources in other parts of the world. Do you see this building out so that there is accessibility and there's equity and diversity and inclusion?
Yes, that definitely. At the open standards, and almost all of these standards organizations that are involved in the forum are committed as part of their governance model to royalty-free standards. So the right standard at the right time can definitely help technology roll out across the whole world, and make things more accessible to everyone than it maybe have otherwise been the case. The standards are at the bottom line, the standards are the tool by which we can make technology accessible to everyone. And the example I like to use is just plugging a plug into your electrical wall socket, right? And IEEE, that didn't happen by accident. That was the work of standardization heroes back in the day. But that whole standards ecosystem has just become so ubiquitous that we don't even think of it as a standard anymore. Well, most of us don't anyway. Think of it, and there are billions of people that use it, just use it all day, every day, and mobile phones too. OpenGLES is used in every user interface on every mobile phone, pretty much. But no, people don't think about it. And that's good. That's the sign of a really successful standard. It just seeps into everyday life to the degree that people don't need to think about it anymore. And the metaverse is going to need standards that become that ubiquitous. It may be a long journey, but the sooner you start, the sooner you'll get there.
So people are going to get more excited, more corporations and different groups, NGOs and so on are going to get more excited as this builds out, including seeing you and talk right now. So how do they get engaged? How do they say, I want to be part of this?
Yeah, well, hopefully we've made that very, very straightforward. And to explain why it's so straightforward is, again, it's not an accident. It's by design. The forum itself is not another standards organization. I know we're called the Metaverse Standards Forum, but we have, I'd like to say, there's 24 different standards organizations you have to go talk to today before the forum to understand what's going on. If the forum was another standards organization, we've just made the problem worse, because now there's 25 people you have to go talk to. So the forum, is this coordination layer, as we were saying, over the existing standards organizations. And the forum won't create standards. It'll feed requirements and Plugfest results and the needs of the industry, we hope, in a well-coordinated, effective way into the standards organizations to help the standards organizations do their good work. So this means that we don't need an IP framework, because the standards developing organizations need to be very careful about patent licensing and IP frameworks to make sure that their standards that they create now can be widely used without problems in the industry. Because the forum is not creating standards, we don't need that heavy lift machinery. We can afford to be much lighter weight, and that's why any organization is welcome to join the forum. All of the information is on the website, but there's no money, there's no IP framework to sign. There's not even an NDA, because it's an open forum, so everything is public. And so if any organization is willing to sign up for a simple agreement saying, if I help you write a blog, I'm going to let you publish it on the website, and a one-page charter, which is the rules of the road, how the forum is going to make decisions. Anyone is welcome to click through that agreement and get engaged. There's no minimum commitment for people joining. And again, Darwinian mechanics rule. There's always a bell curve, and some people will be really engaged and will take a leadership role in all the different working groups that we'll have, and will, I hope, get repaid manyfold for their investment in time and effort, which is great. And there will be people that just on the edges just lurk, and that's fine too, because even people that are just observing what's going on in the forum are hopefully getting good, useful, actionable information and getting insights into how the industry is evolving. So everyone is welcome, regardless of their level of engagement in the activities that we're doing.
So I'm going to propose something, and this idea that really everything that's out there is going to be part of this in some way, you know, including across the spectrum of technologies, whether it's 5 and 6G, supercomputing, quantum computing as it matures, analog computing, sensors, Internet of Things. I mean, it's just the whole gamut, biomedical innovation, all of it somehow in engineering is going to be part of this metaverse and this sort of digital twin representation as we get more and more immersive, from feature phones to or smartphones to, you know, more sophisticated devices, to maybe pods where you're totally encased, like let's say an autonomous vehicle. The panels could be part of this sort of metaverse journey because you're going to have so much time. So now I want to mine your sort of prediction of trends because they're all part of this decades of metaverse journey. Do you have some predictions of things that look really interesting to you? I mentioned some of them, you know, like we have exascale supercomputers that are released already, and now, and you know, some people are talking about ZS scale possibilities. NVIDIA is doing amazing work with your Omniverse and you know, all of the new processors are coming out and so on. I mean, do you want to make some trends sort of you know, narratives here?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a very, it's a good question, very broad question, but and you know, maybe I am, you know, sitting inside NVIDIA, so I see the good work that NVIDIA doing, and I think there is going to be, as actually goes back to what we were saying right at the beginning, content creation, you know, and the creators, content is king in the end. Nothing else matters if content doesn't get created. Content in very diverse types, of course. I think there is going to be a revolution in content creation at both ends of the spectrum. The kinds of stuff that Omniverse is doing at NVIDIA, enabling close cooperation in a much deeper sense between multiple creators or designers in a far more productive way than has ever been possible before. I think that is going to be a revolution. Designing in the metaverse is going to be a thing. And at the other end of the spectrum, just as importantly, enabling end users to be their own content creators too. And I think, you know, this is kind of the story behind GLTF, but the photos and videos have been enabled to be user created for many years, and it creates huge opportunities. You know, YouTube and Facebook come because people can create their own videos and photos. It hasn't happened quite yet. It's coming, and you can see the beginnings. But you know, for 3D, it hasn't happened. And if you know, metaverse is going to be spatially based, it is going to be 3D based. It's going to be immersive. So enabling end users to create high quality 3D content is going to be a key thing. So content creation along that spectrum, I think, is going to be really important. And I think machine learning, you know, we've mentioned that too. It is a transformational technology. Being able to teach machines to do stuff rather than them prescribing how machines should do something is such a transformational change, and it's going to affect everything, including content creation. And you can see it. You mentioned, you know, DALL-E. We're going to learn to apply machine learning in all kinds of domains. So it's going to be inevitably going to be an important part of the metaverse as well. I think, and the other thing, because a lot of people ask, you know, why are you working on the metaverse? It's going to be a dystopian nightmare. Well, we're going to blame you. I go, oh no. I really hope that the world is better informed than it was 15 years ago, 20 years ago, on the potential dangers of, you know, this kind of connectivity. You know, for all the good of social media, you know, there are downsides that we're all painfully aware of. I hope that everyone is learning how we can make this next generation less a more positive overall for the communities as a whole. I believe we can do so. There's a real opportunity there, and I think many end users are more attuned than they used to be about, you know, the potential downsides. So, but it's going to take the the engineering and metaverse community building the metaverse to really bear that in mind. And so, the ethical and the governance side of it, I think, is going to be really important.
So I guess really the catchphrase of what you're trying to lead is really the metaverse for the benefit of the earth and its ecosystems, of humanity as well, and then all of the domains that exist out there. So it's really for good purposes, right? And
I hope so. And I think everyone in the metaverse community trying to build the metaverse, I think, would share that same sentiment. And I think we are better informed and more cognizant than we were, perhaps even just a few years ago. So yeah, I am a believer that the metaverse can be a force for good in the world. I certainly hope so.
So I have a couple of more questions. One is a sort of an open-ended one again. Any other trends that you want to surface? And then I'll get your recommendations to the audience. So first of all, any other trends that you think are really interesting and you just want to put out there, or almost like a thought trigger for the audience, or catalyst for deeper insights?
No, I think we covered it. The ethical one is important. The content creation, well, it just comes back. It could be just come back full circle. It's going to take a lot of stuff working together. This is why I think it's the time the Metaverse Standards Forum has appeared. We haven't tried before quite in this way to integrate quite so many diverse technologies together. So the time for cooperation is the need for cooperation is building, and so I hope we can find ways to work together, and maybe the Metaverse Standards Forum is a way. We'll soon find out. But, yeah, the cooperation and wider integration. Technologies no longer existing in isolation; they have to exist in a larger ecosystem. It is probably the meta trend behind everything.
Well, definitely a mega trend, and I'm just thinking, Neil. I mean, you're part of a team, as you mentioned, it's very collaborative. It's grassroots, but you've taken on a lot as well because you're chairing this. So.
And now I've ended up with 3 jobs now. How did I do that? I'm only getting paid for 1 too.
But this work is like an inflection point as well, right? I mean, it's just coming together, and it's just so much community excitement over it, and passion and commitment, right? So, and I think that's really attractive to people. So one final question, and that is, any general recommendations to the audience?
Wow. Well, I would say, thinking back on my journey that you've helped me relive in this last 20 minutes. I mean, the first one is a cliche, but it is true. If you're fortunate and you can find something you're passionate about that you can make into your job, I know it's a cliche, but it is true. And you're even luckier if the thing you're passionate about can also be commercially interesting at the time. If you can ride the wave of a new technology as it arises. I was lucky. 3D graphics has been one of those waves, and things like machine learning and lots of other domains in the metaverse are going to be similar waves. So the people that are passionate about those technologies, and already throughout the industry, and particularly in the forum, you meet so many awesome folks that are passionate about what they're doing. It really is an exciting and fulfilling thing to be involved with. It's as you say, we hope it's going to change the world in a good way. And recounting the last 3 weeks, lesson I would take from the last 3 weeks of launching the forum and is, don't be afraid to go outside your comfort zone. Because Khronos is, the forum is 2.5 weeks old. Now Khronos is 20 years old. Khronos has kind of become awesome, but personally a comfort zone. We're always trying to improve, but we've been doing it for a while. The Metaverse Forum is definitely outside the comfort zone. But it's it's been a very educational and interesting and rewarding experience. So encourage people to don't be afraid to try new things.
Well, thank you, Neil, for coming in and sharing your insights and your history of success, but also leading these very inflection point kind of programs that really make a difference to the world, and this collaborative effort to do something that's very positive as well. So thank you for sharing so much with our audience.
Oh, thank you, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to The Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for The Brand Called You.